The Reef Therapy Podcast is powered by ICP Analysis. If you'd like to win a free saltwater ICP analysis kit and a freshwater analysis kit, all you have to do is leave a comment down below using the hashtag What's in Your Water. If you're listening to the audio-only version, head on over to YouTube and you can enter in the comment section there. ICP Analysis will test over 50 elements down to parts per trillion. These tests can also be used to see if there's any undesirable elements in your aquarium as well. Register your aquarium on the ICP Analysis app, fill your sample, place it back into the bag, slap on that included postage, and have your results 1 to 3 days after it's received. More at icpanalysis.com.
Hello, Reef Therapy. I am actually going to be the one that's hanging out with you guys this evening because I am here in Colorado at the studio. So today I have multiple special guests with me. We have Jack, who actually does help take care of the studio with us. And then we have Sara, who you all are pretty familiar with now, being on the Ladies Takeover. She's, of course, a local, so I've got to have her on the couch. And then we have Rob, who has been a really big pillar in part of the Reef Builders, just everything, just all of it. And you've been here basically the majority of the time out of everyone.
Correct.
And you were a very, very close friend of Jake's.
Very close.
As well. So we're all going to be hanging out here today, and we're going to talk a bit about the studio, and we're going to talk about some of the origins that went on with Reef Stock. And so how is everybody doing today? Oh, and I forgot Penny's here too. She's hanging out with us on the couch. She's taking a snooze. She may leave us. She may stay the whole time. We don't know. So how is everybody doing today? Jack, how was your day so far?
Doing good. You know, just been hanging out at the studio, cleaning glass and stuff like that for most of the day. So it's been,
that's good.
Yeah, it's always a good day. I like that kind of stuff, honestly. It's very satisfying. So
right? Just cleaning all day. Sarah, how was your day?
Not too bad. Was doing some temperature mitigation at the zoo for the butterflies all night. But the day wasn't too rough. So
Rob, how was your day?
My day was good. I got 2 water changes in today, so I was very happy about that.
Wow, you were like really productive today.
I was. It was a productive day.
So how big are your tanks at home then?
There are several, but my big fish tank is a 175 bow front, and then the big reef is Peninsula 650.
Oh, wow.
Big Red Sea. And then I've got a couple of smaller aquariums, little one for my wife that she gets to play with, and little hex tank that's got my red carpet in it. And I went to the dark side again. I set up a freshwater tank.
I was about to ask, are they all salt?
All but one.
All of them but one.
Yeah.
Ah, he's gone over
had
to
to
the
go
fresh
back to
side.
discus. It's where I started. Had to go back and play a little bit. It's been a long time.
I've never kept them, but they're very stunning.
Yeah.
They're a little finicky though.
They are a little finicky, but that's okay. I'm having fun. So.
Yeah. Well, if you've done salt, you can probably almost have the confidence to do quite a few other varieties too.
That's right. So for me, that's how I got started in salt. I was a freshwater keeper, and my discus were breeding, and I ended up with so much credit in the local fish stores that they said, "Have you considered saltwater?" It was a great way to spend lots of money.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. The more tanks you have, the more fun you're having, the more you're cleaning, more water changes.
You can't have just one.
Right? Yeah, no, you cannot just have one. No, once you get into it for so many years, like all of us have been, we're all guilty. We have multi-tank syndrome.
Oh, absolutely.
Going on here.
Well, because so many different animals need such vastly different parameters or have different requirements or needs. And to really get each of them to shine, you kind of have to set up all of these different tanks to really showcase them the way they deserve to be showcased.
Yeah, plus biotopes are the coolest. Like
I love biotopes.
You know, just like single species tanks are definitely really, really cool. So
yeah. You got any plans for one of those here?
I mean, there's already, some in here, or at least they have a general theme like that, but at the moment, I'm not in particular. I know we're going to set up like a mushroom only tank. We already have a chalice only tank. Definitely will at some point in the future for sure. So
that would be cool. Well, we'll definitely make sure that Jack gets to document all of that for you guys over there.
Yeah.
So let's chat like tank. Like, is there anything that you guys have seen lately or heard of lately that you found interesting? We did just have that big top 50 list that we put up on the Reef Builders Facebook, and that a lot of people really enjoyed that. Yeah, absolutely. Or even just discoveries like when it came to like breeding and, aquaculture, things of that nature. What did you guys like from that list?
For me, it was the biota, the
Potter's Angel. That was mine as well.
Just spectacular. Cool. I also had a little bit of an affinity for what Palma Labs had done with their little king eye angel, which I thought was just fantastic.
Yeah.
So
they've done some very impressive things, and just even the more, species that we get out there, the better off everyone will be, essentially, just, from a hobbyist perspective, because they're actually sturdier animals, and they're going to be eating. They've gone through a type of quarantine situation. And yes, it can be a longer road to some degree, because you're having to grow up babies and you're having to do all that research and the patience that it comes with the breeding. But it really is the future of our industry.
It is. And I like the fact that they're rock solid, right? When you get a fish, it's eating, it's you don't have to worry about disease coming in, right? Because it's been captive bred. And the challenge, of course, is introducing them into existing aquariums because they don't come in large sizes. So it takes a little bit of extra effort, to get them into your big system. But once they're established, they do so well.
Oh, yeah, they are. They're so healthy. And you also kind of get a bit of like a lineage going on, because you know where they came from, and, they're keeping very close eye on what they're breeding. A lot of those facilities, because I have also visited biota myself. I went to the Florida facility, and it's very organized. They have stuff there. It's all separated. They know all of the dates of everything. And it's very well put together.
Oh, absolutely. I think what biota's doing and what's coming out of Bali Aqua Rich with Wenping Zoo is just fantastic.
Yeah.
Some of the animals that they're being able to bring to market that are captive bred that we never would have thought would ever be available to us. And it's wonderful.
Yeah. All the advances are just stunning. What about you, Sarah?
I would agree with the Potter's Angel. I think there's a lot of conservation implications when we're able to rear completely in captivity these animals that we really haven't been able to before. Not only does it provide a more sustainable resource for the hobby with much hardier animals, it also has implications if there are endangered fish that we want to work with these are good surrogates for, because we've already started to make these huge strides in kind of cracking the code of how to keep them alive and breed them. So I think we're in this really cool advent right now of discovery within the hobby, of finally understanding the life cycles of a lot of these animals.
Oh yeah, so much research and just so many years dedicated to doing this. So thank you to everybody who has a part in dealing with any of that.
Awesome.
We all definitely appreciate your hard work and efforts.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty cool that that all came down to just finding a species of copepod that was small enough to get fish through those early larval development stages, and that's all it was for years and years and years.
Yep.
Not having a pod that was small enough. I think it's pretty cool that that's all it took, and now we're able to do all these things. So
yeah, for sure. What about you, Jack? What did you like?
I've been trying to think. I know I looked at the list, but I can't exactly remember what was on the
Everybody
list.
loved the Seache heater. That dude was number one. The Potters was second, but
That's
that
right.
Seache heater was
I
one.
definitely want to get some of those in here to try out. I definitely liked the idea of how easy it is to set up and stuff like that, and how you touch your phone to it and you can set the temperature and it'll send you alerts and stuff like that too. I think that's a really cool feature. But yeah, I'd really like to get my hands on one of those and definitely try it out. So
okay, well, we might know a guy or two. So if Steve or Jay is hanging out, watching, you know where to find them.
Definitely use some of those. So.
What did you guys do over the holidays? Did you do anything exciting?
On Christmas Day. Oh wait, not Christmas Day. On Christmas Day, I cleaned the studio by myself, and then on New Year's Eve, I had 6 or 7 people in here helping me clean all kinds of stuff. It was really cool to bring in the new year that way, and I don't know, having all that help in here and doing all this stuff. We scrub tanks, we cleaned
doing a big refresh for the new year.
Yeah, we did water changes, we did everything, and it's just always nice to have that kind of help in here for sure. So
now when
that's
you do volunteers.
So
we do like to have volunteers come in here to the studio. It's a really cool opportunity. You get to hang out with Jack and you get to, handle some of the really cool animals and take care of them in here. What do you like to have most done in here?
So typically have my volunteers, cleaning glass, pumps, skimmers, stuff that's tedious and hard to do, but I usually make it worth their while. I send them home with a frag or something like that, something cool. So I really like to delegate the really hard and tedious stuff to everybody, and I like to help out in the kitchen and stuff too, but it's nice to do that stuff with a bunch of hands.
So you can handle the bigger projects.
Yeah, like when you're cleaning skimmers, you're like taking apart sumps and stuff like that. You want help to put stuff back together at the end and stuff like that. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Sarah,
it's
would
nice
you
to practice those skills with somebody who, if you do it wrong, can fix it.
Yeah,
Right.
that's very true.
That's
yes.
the big benefit of kind of that volunteer opportunity is you get to learn these skills that maybe you were intimidated by, and you have somebody there who can fix it if it goes wrong.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
exactly?
I definitely wish I had that at certain points in time.
And you hang out with Penny. Like Penny's probably usually here all the time.
She's definitely always here. Yeah. All
Might
the
see
time.
Max. He's scooting around in here too.
Yeah, Max goes everywhere with me as well. So
So Sarah, what'd you do over the holidays?
We had a really quiet holiday, and it was delightful. Just Christmas Day, didn't do anything with family, just like hung out, had good food, and relaxed, and
You didn't even do water changes. You just like chilled.
just chilled.
Wow.
Chilled, and it was so nice and refreshing.
Wow. Okay, Rob, what'd you do? Did you do some water changes, or you caught up and you're done with your water changes?
No, I did some water changes prior because
Did you entertain?
I was having
Prep for
friends
it.
coming over Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And one of my friends had been a long-time aquarist. He's out, but he set up his first saltwater tank in the 60s.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow.
So a bit older than I am, but we won't tell him that too loud. But it was, when you have people like that, or there's nothing worse than and enjoyable. Like it was like having Jake come over, right?
Mhm.
Jake comes to your house, and you're like, oh, you got to do a lot of work. So it was good. It was fun. We did a little bit of Christmas Eve event, and then for Christmas, I opened up a nice bottle of wine out of the cellar, and my wife and I had a lovely, relaxing.
Well, there you go. So I would love to hear about this tank from back then. And
Yeah, was that like still like a steel frame?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Metaframe aquariums
Under
Yeah.
gravel filter?
and absolutely because
Yeah, absolutely.
That was all thing you had?
you had an air pump, you had an under gravel, and
Yeah.
that's where it started. And when I first got into saltwater, 82, 83, I met my friend Carl at one of the local stores, and he'd been obviously doing it for a number of years already. And so we built a very nice bond over that. He's been a lifelong friend, and
That's cool.
he was the one that when he took his tank down, I got the angelfish old enough to drink from.
Wow.
Oh
that's
yeah,
very
which is
cool.
an article which we did talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is an article that Jake wrote, and it is revolving around a fish that was 23
Correct.
at the time. So a fish that was old enough to.
I can see the title now, like of that article.
I think it said this fish is old enough to drink. I think.
Yeah, I can totally
Wow.
see it.
That's cool. So if you guys all go back there and you read that somewhere in our archives on the Reef Builders website, let us know what you guys thought of that article. Now, did you get to see or handle some of the older tanks, from back then? Like, what was it like? What was livestock like back then?
So I didn't start that early. I did, but it was freshwater.
Mhm.
Right. So when I was a little kid, we had freshwater and certainly had the old metal frame, slate bottom aquariums that were all sealed with tar. That was always fun and exciting. And electrocuting ourselves with the lights on top that were metal and incandescent as well.
They'll get you going in the morning.
That's right. Oh, it gets your attention. But
your tank out for the
my
day.
first saltwater tank was a 40. So a 40 long, short 55.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was quite enjoyable. And then I discovered the world of Plex aquariums, and life got more interesting.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, like
for
the
sure.
hexes and stuff like that, the
So-
acrylic tanks, or
No, big 5-6 foot sea clear. If you
Sea
remember
Clear.
sea clear and some of those early aquariums that were out there.
yeah.
Yeah. So
So what was it like navigating how you wanted your tank to look?
well, you
Back in
didn't
the
have as
80s.
many choices.
Right. You
Right.
didn't have as much, and you didn't have the internet to turn to. It was all old
Oh,
school. You had to do
absolutely.
the books, or you had to get your face-to-face.
It-
Or the magazine?
It was all about, certainly articles in the magazines, and a number of reef notes from Julian was a spectacular resource.
Yeah.
But it was books, right? Because you consulted a book. I mean, Stephen Spotty was probably the one that drove most of my interest in my knowledge when it came to chemistry, right? Because he wrote some beautiful books about the science and the art of aquarium keeping. And that became a big driver. And of course, we didn't have the choices that we have today. You know, a coral was a soft coral that you were happy to keep alive, right? The hard corals were not something you played much with. And as the technology evolved and we got all the new cool gear coming into play, when HO and VHO lighting came out, we were all excited.
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you.
HO25.
That's right, yes. So it became an opportunity to play and to start investigating animals that we didn't think we could keep,
Right.
right? Today, this...
A lot of experimenting kind
Absolutely.
of going on there. Trial and error.
Yes,
A lot of trial and
a lot
error.
of trial and error. But it was fun. And there were things we could get then that we can't get now,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Especially those of us that remember getting Florida Live Rock, right? That was
Yeah.
covered in Recordia.
Or just like covered in all sorts of fun stuff and legit
rays.
hitchhikers.
Well,
the
you could get-
real ones that you really did not think
No.
existed
No.
or getting
Yeah.
into your tank.
That's right. Right.
Yeah.
There are also one of my favorite little fish that I set up in a tank, a species tank just for, was the Centrophagy resplendens, which is the little tiny pygmy angel that looks like a damsel that comes
Resplendent
out of the
Islands.
Ascension Islands.
Wow.
And they were readily available in the late 80s and early 90s, but they're not available today. I keep waiting for someone to...
The closest thing you can find is a Starkey damsel. It's like
Yes,
color
but it's
wise.
still a damsel.
Yeah,
That's still a damsel. He's still
One of
gonna
the
fight
nicer
you.
damsels, but still,
Yes, but still a damsel.
still a damsel.
Yep, still a damsel. Wow. Okay, so now with your reefs at home, what's your favorite to tinker with and your pride and joy?
That's hard. In the reef tank, probably it's going to, again, there are those of us that came up with from the keeping fish, right? I'm a fish person who uses coral as the background,
Okay.
as opposed to the coral people that have fish for, a little bit of movement. And so my corals, there's nothing terribly rare and unusual. I just, I go for nice, pretty colors, fast growers. But for me, it's the fish. And so I have a nice marginalis in my reef tank that does a great job at controlling pests, right? So doing very, very well. I have a hybrid that came from Poma Labs, which is kind of like a maze angel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so very pretty and fun. And a pair of Watanabes.
You're an angel guy.
I like angels and butterflies.
You're an angel guy. I like the Watanabes. They are very stunning, and you don't see too many people really trying to keep them, just
Yes.
even in a hobby.
And they're all of the Genacanthus are really very good reef fish.
Yeah.
Because they don't bother things. And
Yeah.
they're
They're good
They're
movers too.
planktonic
They're very
feeders a lot.
active.
very active.
They're very active.
They
So
spawn every
definitely
night.
have a long tank.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, every night the male gets out there and he starts doing his little dance and the female comes along. And for me, it's food for the reef.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely,
exactly.
So
That's why I used to keep so many different types of shrimp, like cleaner shrimp, the blood red shrimp. I was like, just breed and breed and breed. My mandarins never had issues getting anything. They could eat those little babies. All my LPS, they would just eat it up, and they just sit there in front of the power head and let those babies out. And I'm like, yes. Why?
Just last night had a rock in them and he starts spawning randomly.
Oh, that's fun. You're gonna find babies everywhere.
Oh my god! I was like
Everywhere.
walking by the tank and I was like, "Why is it cloudy?" And I just see him just poof 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 like a little chimney.
Yep.
I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Most of
you
them will
jerk."
settle underneath the adults.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
And then you'll find random ones in like tiny crevices that you don't realize were sitting there for about 6 months. And you'll go, what's that neon orange thing? Oh, yeah.
Oh,
There it
look at
is.
that.
Another flower.
My little baby anemone there.
Yeah. So on the invert side, I think I'd probably say my clams.
You like plants?
Yeah. So I have a gigas that's very happy. So
So how
How
old
big is your
oldest?
gigas?
Yeah, how big is your gigas?
probably about yay big.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's an ORA, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. From when they came out. Oh, I don't know. It's probably 8-10 years ago, I think, is when they reintroduced
Yes.
their gigas clams.
Yep.
I got one from the same order that Jake brought one in.
And I
Brought
just
in
went and
order.
saw Jake's at the aquarium.
Did
That
you?
thing is huge.
Yes, when
Giant.
it came to growth contests, he won.
Yeah, things like this big.
Dude, those things are total calcium
It's
hogs.
huge.
I mean,
Yes.
they decide to grow a little bit, and you better go test everything.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
pretty
very
sure
true.
that's where most of my calcium supplementation goes to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is the Gigas. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
but
sure.
it definitely helps have a calcium reactor on a tank with clams for sure. So-
Yeah, that's a very good tip there. Okay, so Sarah, who's your favorite that you take care of, or that you have?
Oh, I mean,
She loves.
I
her
talk about my
Caribbean.
Ismelia fastigiata all the time. It's my favorite coral. To not be redundant, maybe a different animal. I have a special place in my heart for urchins. We have a bunch of like the Canis variegatus, so the pincushion urchins, and they're easy, they're hardy, they're fun. Like
Yeah.
we give them hats and things like that
Oh,
on
yeah.
exhibit for them to pick up, and
Oh yeah.
there's just something so heartwarming about this animal who's just trucking along with a little top hat on, and
Right?
they do a good job.
Yeah, they're super important for the reefs. And
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
ask Martin Moe, like that guy has been, preaching urchins for years and years and years and years and years.
I love the little hats and accessories that
Yeah.
people will give them because that makes the kids be interested.
Absolutely,
It brings in all of
Gives a
that
personality.
youthfulness.
It
It
does.
is. Like when I went to DNA a few years ago, they had a tank with quite a few of them in there, and they actually gave them lightsabers. So for a very long time, I had this really awesome
Oh, that's
picture
cool.
of two that were going after each other, and one had a green lightsaber and one had a red. I was like, that is my Facebook banner picture,
That's
and it was there
cool.
forever.
I feel like they just get like a bad rap.
Well,
Urchins
they
in
get
general.
bull
They are.
bulldogs
They-
and stuff.
They're more careful than you think, though. Like, it's kind of surprising how they can maneuver in a tank. Like, you'll see like these like huge like black long spine urchins, and like the fact that they can
I do
even
not
move
like
in some of the
those.
tanks that they're in is like impressive. Like
I've had them. What we used to have a pair of the big black long spine, and when you were scrubbing the tank,
yeah, that's definitely
they
sketch.
would come towards you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they would like orient like they were gonna joust you.
Yeah,
Oh,
they'll
yeah.
they'll angle all of their spines.
Yeah,
they
towards
knew you were there.
They came
Yeah.
for you.
That's one of my
Slow
worst
motion.
ones was I got jabbed by one, and
It'll break off.
it went right between like my fingers, and I knew instantly. I was like, this isn't coming out. I have no choice
Yeah,
but to take it,
I had a-
crush it, and try to
I had a
bleed
piece
out
of-
as much as I could.
I had a piece of
Mm.
long spine urchin in my palm for probably like 4 or 5 years.
Oh,
Before
yeah.
it finally fell out.
Yeah,
so.
I had this really funny bruise. Everybody'd be like, "What'd you do?" And I'm like, "That is
Yeah.
I got
urgent."
into a fight with an urchin, and I don't want to talk about
He
it.
started it.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. Okay, so Jack, who do
Yeah.
you? I mean, you have a lot to pick from in here.
So my favorite animals in here, like I would say, would be the abalones.
Yeah, the
because they
abalones are
do
cool.
freaking work. Like there's like tanks in here that have like no cleanup crew at all except for one abalone. And that dude, it's like a Roomba. He'll come out every night and like cover the entire tank, eat everything in sight, and then go back and hide under a rock for the rest of the day.
They almost don't look real when you see them underwater because
Yeah,
they're so.
They look
glass
like a
shiny.
Muppet trapped under a rock. Like
Mhm.
they're pretty cool. Like I definitely like them quite a bit. So
Again, I think very underappreciated.
Yeah.
They're phenomenal.
it's hard to find tropical abalones right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
whenever I do, I buy them all. I found some last year. I bought like 6 or 7 last year. Definitely awesome cleanup crew members, and they get really big. And yeah, I just think they're definitely
They
awesome.
are excellent. That is the thing in my tank that moves my coral around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
They're buff creatures. They're really strong.
They are.
And
yeah.
like, like if you, the only way you can get them off the glass is you have to go like super fast, like get underneath them super quick. But if you touch them, they'll suck up against the glass, and like no matter what you do, you're knocking them off, and
Yeah.
you can't cut them because then they'll bleed out. So you have to be really careful in that particular situation. So
We've had some success with some of the big abalones we work with kind of like the side to side wiggle.
yeah,
Like you just kind of wiggle side to side, and that's breaks that kind of vacuum
Yeah.
suction that they
it's
use.
crazy though. They have like a really strong suction. Probably use those to lift tanks, honestly. You know,
Just two
use some abalone.
Hold on, I gotta grab the abalones real quick. All right, everybody grab an abalone. That would be so
More effective.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I can't.
I definitely love the abalones. So yeah.
Well, there you go. There's an invention. Like somebody just make a really great suction cup set. Or just call it the abalone. Just
Yeah.
for moving
Biodegradable.
tanks. There you go.
There you go.
Somebody
Yeah.
do
The
it.
first aquarium branded suction cups. You know,
Yeah.
that'd be that's what
Yep.
that's what you should call them.
we do have Reef Stock coming up pretty soon, and all of us are going to be there. And so Reef Stock has been around for many years. Rob, you have been to the majority of them.
I have.
And so tell us a little bit about what it was like in those earlier days going to the show.
It was fun. One of the things that Jake, when he started Reef Stock, he started Reef Stock before he was the editor at Reef Builders, right? So he was doing it for a long time. What he wanted he wanted to showcase the really cool things that we have here in Colorado with locals, but also bring in what he wanted to see as a boutique event, right? Where it was the things that were the newest, the most interesting, the things that maybe you wouldn't normally see. And he wanted to also ensure that we built community around that. And so education was part of it, right? An opportunity to interact with folks was another big piece that came into play. And the first one was pretty small, right? It was in a little hotel downtown. And as it grew, we moved into the downtown aquarium for a while, right? That was very fun. It was one of my favorite spots. But unfortunately, we exceeded the capacity of the room as it related to the fire code.
Right.
And so we actually ended up with people standing outside waiting to get in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it all started as just like a few vendors like on the walls of a room, you know? Like,
that's right.
Yeah.
And so it proved very popular. And so needing to find larger spaces, it moved around a little bit looking for larger venues. And I really like where it is now at the Crowne Plaza. I think it's convenient, it's easy to get to. And it certainly provides enough room for everybody to move around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it still maintains that local boutique feel, right, of community getting together and being able to have a fun experience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's 2 days. Originally, it was 1 day, right? So it was a 1 day event. And there was enough interest that it grew into 2 days. And that's a very busy, a very effective 2 days, I think, for the show.
Yeah, it is. It's very popular. And whenever I went, I didn't get to go to my first one until I had started with Fritz. And it was right before the pandemic. And I was just so blown away. It is such a busy show. And everybody coming there just genuinely has got the mindset of, I'm learning something today. I'm going to see something super cool, and I'm probably going to buy it or find something to buy. And it's just a really great atmosphere. Like everybody's just so happy and excited to come to it too. Everybody's very, very just up whenever you go to Reef Stock.
It's going to see all of your friends.
Yeah,
right?
it really
and
is.
You're in a
it's
big
centrally
room.
located, so
That's
a lot
right.
of people do enjoy flying in
Sure.
and coming and hanging out. And because it is 2 days now, they like to, maybe either come a little earlier or stay a little later and go snowboarding or skiing since it's in March.
You know, there's
do
lots of
that.
stuff to do in Colorado. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Absolutely.
So everybody just kind of makes it like a nice little winter getaway thing. But
And it's the first show of the year too. It's the first
it
show of the
is,
year.
yeah.
So.
It is the first show
Yeah,
of the year.
That's right.
Yeah, that'll be super exciting to kick off this year because we've got a lot of like really cool things going on. Rob, you've been working very closely with Windsor, where we're going to be moving into more of a silent auction style
Correct.
for this show.
Yeah.
So do you have any details you can share with us about that?
So we're going to be doing, instead of running a raffle at the show, we're going to be doing a silent auction, which is a little different than what folks are used to that are coming to the show. But what's nice about this is all of the funds that are raised are for Reef Adams. They all go directly into his 529 plan, which is a scholarship program, so that it'll help pay for his schooling, right, as he grows up.
Yeah.
And so we might end up with another marine biologist. We'll see what happens. It's a little ways away yet.
Yeah, he hasn't decided yet.
That's right.
He could be Reef out on, like the baseball field, like, catching pop flies or something. But that's okay.
Exactly.
We'll still adore him no matter what.
No matter what he does. But he'll be there. Windsor will be there.
Yes, they're
So-
both coming. They already booked their flights. So if you guys want to come to Restock, or if you know that you're going to have plans of coming to Restock, we'll get to see Windsor and Reef. And that is so exciting because this is going to be Windsor's real first outing since she's had Reef.
Correct.
And coming to see everybody. And I believe she's going to be in town for like 2 weeks or something like that, just visiting and catching up with people and just seeing everybody that she's missed. And I'm excited to see her. I'm excited to meet Reef. He's so cute.
Oh,
he comes in on our team meetings and he's just such a doll. He's a doll. So whenever people want to do the silent auction, we're going to have that in an area of the floor plan. And we're going to get you guys some special signage. And that's going to tell everybody also that comes to the show, you know, some of the information that you just shared with us, Rob. And then, you know, just like the little bio or a little something about Windsor and Reef and, you know, where the silent auction is going to be focused on. So, Sara, you've been to a few Reef stocks.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you spoken at every single one you've gone to?
No, I've only actually spoken at Reef Stock once.
Well, it's about to be 2.
And I got to talk about our Caribbean coral and Florida Reef Track Rescue Project. I started going to Reef Stock as a brand new aquarist at Butterfly Pavilion, and I remember walking around to every single vendor and introducing myself. The community here is so warm and inviting, and I have met lifelong friends at Reef Stock.
Yeah.
People who I just truly have taken me under their wing. And Jake, I remember chatting with him at Reef Stock and getting invited to his kind of original studio before this big studio, and chatting with him and how excited he was to show off this space.
Like even like when I go around here and I visit stores and just like seeing a lot of my friends and connections out here, the one thing I can say that you will always be offered when you come to Colorado is everyone asks you if you need water, because they understand that if you are not from here, you search like the desert all the time. It's happening to you. So everybody that is here as a Colorado native, thank you for all the water that you guys generously offer every time we go somewhere. But I do have to say that Sarah's the best when we do our ladies takeover, because I always watch her. She's always drinking water, and then it helps me remember to drink water.
Yeah. I noticed we both had mason jars we were drinking out, but I had you had a pint and I had a quart.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Sarah's really doing good tonight. She's hydrated.
Gotta stay hydrated. Hydrate or dihydrate.
Okay, so Jack, now you've been to quite a few Reef stocks, haven't you?
I've been going to Reef Stock since I think 2010.
Wow.
So
you were young. What was something as a younger person that you looked forward to when you went to the show?
Corals, man. That's what I went there for, was corals, and there was always good deals and stuff to be had. And I remember at my first Reef Stock, I went to Reef Koi and I bought, I think 3 or 4 Zoa rocks. And I remember that I basically scaped. I had a 4-gallon tank at the time, and I scaped my entire tank with those 3 Zoa rocks, and that was one of my favorite tanks that I've ever had. So
nice.
So yeah.
So how old were you when you had that little 4-gallon?
So let's see, that would be, how old was I in 2010? I was 12.
Wow. So that's actually a really difficult tank to decide to do as a kid.
Yeah, I mean that's
usually the more difficult.
That's what I could afford,
Yeah, but you were diligent, and if it's your favorite tank,
yeah, I mean it did really well because it was all Zoas, So it was all Zoas and a pair of Clarkie clownfish that I got at Petco, and they're this big, and by the time I got rid of my 4-gallon, they're solid 3 inches, So
hey, don't take Zoas for granted, man. Some people can't keep them alive.
Yeah,
I know.
I mean, yeah. If you have algae problems, they're kind of the first thing to go because they're competing directly with it height wise, So especially hair algae, will take out your Zoas pretty quick. So
right.
Yeah, and cyano. Stuff like that. So
that stuff's real fun.
Sometimes they'll melt for no reason, but most of the time Zoas are pretty resilient in my experience. So
what's your favorite Zoa then?
That's a good question. I would say seduction / white zombies. I really like that. I like Zoas where every polyp looks slightly different. None of them look exactly the same. Like Hawaiian people eaters and stuff like that, where every single polyp is a little bit different. Some of them you have colors that other ones don't at all. So. Mm-hmm.
I like the ultimate utter chaos for that reason, because they all will look different.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with houseplants. I like for houseplants where every leaf looks different. So
yeah,
yep.
Okay, so favorite Zoa, Sara?
So when I did dabble in Zoas before I learned my lesson, I remember getting a rock with Rastas on it.
Oh yeah, I remember Rastas first happened.
A ton of them right here. Yep.
Right. And at the time, I just remember like it was like 3 tiny little Rastas on this plug, and it was way too expensive. And I got it at a reef show in Pennsylvania at the time. We had a local reef club, and they do like a very tiny micro reef stock, if you will. And I picked them up there, and I was so excited about them. And inevitably, I murdered them, as I did any other Zoa. But they still have a place in my heart, as just had such joy for them in that moment. Yeah. Such hope for the future.
Rob, do you have a favorite Zoa?
Every time
you probably kept a lot.
I've had a number of them, but I am terrible in common names.
Yeah,
okay.
So I couldn't pick out the differences between.
What color was it?
They do get really crazy names nowadays.
They do, but the favorite one that I have probably is because of where it came from, and I have a big colony, a nice colony that's isolated of Palathea grandis.
Yes.
Oh,
Right.
I can keep alive.
The Grandies. Yeah.
That's right.
A super duper underappreciated.
Yes,
They are
I
so
love
beautiful.
those.
But these came from Steve Herlock.
Okay.
So that's why it's my favorite.
Yeah.
Right? It's like its origin was important to me.
That's very cool.
Yeah, Steve Herlock, I mean, he had a lot of awesome corals that are still doing great activity today. So
Absolutely.
Really cool. Like, didn't the Space Invader Pictinia come from Steve Herlock?
I don't know the answer to that.
I believe that it did. I'm not 100% sure, but
So
It may have.
yeah. There's a beautiful Herlock Ghani
Yep, the
Right.
pink and green Ghani.
that continues today from his original tank. So there are a number of them. But my wife likes the little zoanthids that look like a daisy pollard.
Oh,
Okay.
I know which ones you're talking about.
Beautiful little sunflower-looking daisy.
Are those the long lash eagle eyes? Those kind of looked like that. Well, they were more green though. Are you saying daisy like yellow?
They're
Not.
yellow and white, and they've got a nice color around the edge. And again, it's a zoanthid.
It's
Yeah.
a zoanthid.
It's a Zoa.
So
Zoanthid SP.
Yeah.
that's right, zoanthid SP.
You don't see a ton of some of like the freshwater side. You get the Amano style like ADA tanks where it looks like a landscape. And I feel like there's so much opportunity you could play with coral.
Oh yeah.
Similar.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like something like that hasn't really taken off. But
It's definitely.
It's probably coming though.
Yeah, I feel like it's really hard to it's harder to do that with corals because of the way they grow. Like they just like they grow in like a less proportionate way than like plants do. You know, it's like
Yeah,
hard to
you'd
make
really
those
have to
small
try to
shapes.
plan that one out with very specific species
it-
and the tendencies to how
Take
they
some like
grow.
bonsai practice. You know?
yeah,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of skill, I think, to pull that off in such a way that it would come across in how you intended it. But
Well, you can easily start with the grassy knoll being GSP. Just very
Absolutely.
easily, just a
That's
nice
true,
grassy knoll, and then just have like the rolling hills of Zoas.
Yeah, that's true.
behind it.
Yeah.
you use like some anthelias. also,
Yes.
kind of very flower-like.
Yeah. It would probably look very Dr. Seuss, but it'd be very neon.
Yeah. So
Well, circling back to those early aquariums that I started with, again, all soft corals, but the back wall of what was my 75-gallon aquarium
GSP.
was all GSP.
Oh,
And-
those
That
are
was so
cool.
cool.
I
It
love that
back
look.
wall, this
That's right.
full GSP.
Yeah.
And it looked like the wheat fields of Kansas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
As
it
the
just
water
waves.
rippled across.
Yes.
Hey, we were excited. We were growing.
I know, right? You'd be like,
Yeah,
it's
right.
inching up. I can tell. It's eventually going to cover this whole back wall.
It's interesting how like the target changes depending on how hard and easy things are. So back then, growing coral was hard. So having as much coral as possible was the name of the game.
That's right.
But now where it's getting so much easier, you get these like clear bottom and the Berlin style tanks, and it just crisper, and having that negative space is more important. And it's cool to see how things have evolved.
Yeah, really paying attention to the profile of how it comes up off the rock, especially when you're dealing with SPS, because there can be some beautiful profiles
Absolutely.
that people create, especially if they start to do some of like the bridges with their live rock and they create that negative space, and then they'll have archways and monty caps. I love that look. It's so sleek.
I got a
but
question
a lot
for
of
Rob.
planning. All right, let's go.
When was the first time you saw like a coral frag?
Oh, that's a great question.
Ooh, a long time ago. But, when you talk about coral frags, a coral frag that when we first started playing with corals
was like full of rock.
Was a coral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to crack this rock and
Not a 3/4 inch.
No, what today is a colony. No. Colonies were colonies.
Yeah.
Right? And a frag was something that you could hold in
chunk.
your hand.
Yeah.
Which is more
Because
like
I know
how
I
it's
asked
nature.
I asked
Like, those are
Jake
the
that
frags
question
you
at
get.
one point, and his answer was the first time that he saw like real frags was at Steve Chang's shop, and he had like little tiny circle fine leathers cut up, and those were like the first coral frags he saw.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he had his shop down on Santa Fe.
Yeah,
That he did some interesting things with.
yeah.
And probably in the retail stores, it was probably prior to Great Barrier Reef, Debron.
Yeah, Deborah.
Yeah, Debron had a number of interesting
Frags and
corals.
stuff like
Yeah, because most everybody was doing fish, and if you wanted a coral, you got leathers.
Yeah, I know Debron, like they had like big totes set up that they had corals in, like big wood totes that had pond liners in them, and
That's
then
right.
they would fill those up with corals, and people would just
Yep.
come buy colonies of corals at a time,
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, like huge, like 12-foot long, 4 feet wide, like 2 or 3 feet deep with a pond liner in it, and then they would just fill that up with water, put lights over it, and fill it up with corals, like a shipment of corals.
Well,
so.
everything was under metal halide.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
So you had, really strong lighting.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot of very interestingly shaped brown, green, and occasionally purple,
Mm-hmm.
right? With a little bit of blue coral, but to, not what we see today with all the varying shades that LEDs can produce for us.
Yeah.
So
For sure. There's been a lot of advances. I love metal halides. I will always love metal halides, and T5s being partners. I do really love and enjoy where the LED game has gone over the years, and how much these companies have dialed in your own personal experience that you want to have with it when it comes not just to the timers, but to the look of the tank. And then even just if you want to have a deep water tank, you can do it. If you want to have a more brighter tank with a lagoon, you can do that too. And you can still do it within the same lights.
Yeah.
So that's
Same
really
light.
come a long way.
Yeah, the versatility is
Yes.
It makes the investment more palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Because we've all been there and thrown away that receipt and lied about even going to the fish store.
But the other thing that I don't see as much are the tanks with algae. The algae that we want to have.
Oh,
Yeah, like
yeah.
macroalgae tanks.
Macroalgae.
Yeah, macroalgae tanks.
And-
There was a trend, though, for a couple years where everybody seemed like they were setting up really cool refugiums.
They're
that
harder to
looked like
maintain than
tanks.
you would think. You really have to.
Yeah, I
you
can
really
see
have
they
to,
could be.
You have to dose iron and stuff like that.
That's
If
right.
You really
Mm-hmm.
want them to do well. Otherwise,
And you do have to have good flow. You have
Otherwise,
to have
one
good
algae is going to
flow.
take over, and the rest are going to just hinder and die.
Yes.
Yep.
And light cycles, much more important with certain ones, like the glurpas. If you don't have a full 24-hour light cycle, then they'll just randomly spawn off.
At least 18 hours a day. Otherwise, they go into reproduction mode. So,
I
yeah.
think it's more challenging.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it provides a very interesting biotope to get to play with.
Absolutely. Seagrasses
Yeah.
too.
Yes.
Seagrasses, like the Halimeda, the Calcareous algae.
Yeah.
Those are all mermaids.
Mermaid's brush. Yes.
Palladium.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen those in a while.
I remember we would get them in, and they always looked so cool. And it's just the time it takes for them to grow, or not quite having what they need. It's definitely you really can't do them successfully. I feel like with a reef, they just are. You
They
could,
lose out.
yeah. They just the things that they need. There's enough that again you need another tank. Multi-tank syndrome.
Yeah.
This is
That's
how we get all
that's
these
how it
tanks.
happens. Right there. You just heard
well,
we would
we-
even
That's
do
right.
it just from that subject matter alone.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think we almost made it to an hour now, Jimmy? Oh, we're at 45 minutes. Oh, well, we're doing good then. All right, so what y'all want to chat about now? Because now we covered refugiums, talked about some of the older corals that you used to see in the game and how they used to display them. So when was some of the first tanks that you guys ever saw that really said to you, I want to do this? What did that tank look like? Was it a big reef? Was it a little one?
My first reef tank that I ever saw was in my neighbor's house, when my childhood friend's house. He didn't really have like the craziest reef going on, but I remember he had a sump in his basement. So like it was all plumbed into his basement from the living room, and like he had a refugium full of Kato and Sally Lightfoot crabs, and like that got me hooked. Just the filter alone.
That's hardcore for back then.
Yeah, just
Whenever
the filter on the tank alone, like, was what got me into the hobby. Like, I was
like the mechanics.
I wanted the filter, like, more than the actual tank itself.
You
So
need the reef to have the filter.
yeah, I quickly realized, like, on my 4-gallon tank, I made like the jankiest hang-on back overflow you've ever seen out of a hang-on back filter. And I built a 10-gallon refugium that I had attached to that for absolutely no reason, just because I wanted a refugium. So, just the way I was when I was younger. So, yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rob, what was yours?
I think the tank that made me realize what could be done with a real reef tank was actually a tank in California. It was at a store called Tiz Tropical Fish that doesn't exist anymore in Fountain Valley. And I walked in the door, and here was this gorgeous piece of reef with corals that I was never able to keep alive and didn't think anybody else could either. And I was just fascinated. And so a lot of questions, right? Why? What's happening? What's different? How? Right? What could I incorporate to be able to do some of those things? And that just stopped me dead in my tracks.
Oh, yeah. Seeing that first one ever, you're just like, what is all of this?
Yeah.
Yep, and there's no going back.
No,
you gotta at least attempt to achieve it.
Yeah.
Oh, indeed.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and having pieces of that, yes,
Yeah.
but not that solution. That beautiful display just was mind blowing.
Wow. Okay, so Sarah, what was the one that got you?
So it's funny. My childhood, my dad had a reef tank, and I remember it was always just ever present in our living room, and I was never overly interested in it. Like, it was cool. It was there. It was decoration, basically. We named the fish, and then I got to go scuba diving with my dad in Hawaii, and I was his last choice. I was the only one in the family who actually wanted to do it. But once I went down and I saw a reef, I came back up. It changed how I viewed it so much. Like it. I
feel like I have a little piece of this at home.
Yeah, it put me on the path of wanting to become a marine biologist. I began to appreciate this tiny piece of the ocean in our living room in New Jersey so much more. Getting to have that, I think, flip was really impactful and meaningful. And without having a dad who loved the ocean and loved reefs, I don't know if I'd be where I am today. And so that tank is forever.
That's cool.
The foundation.
That's very cool. I was the weirdo in my family. Like, no one really kept tanks, and my parents were like not pet people.
Yeah, my dad was really supportive, luckily.
And well, see, like, I was like, well, if I get a fish or I get a fish tank, like, it can't pee or poop on the carpet. Like, my mom's ordering it. And then the water changed. Then the water changed.
It's even worse.
And it was like, well, technically, Mom, it did. But
technically, it's not urine.
Yeah.
It'll go away. It'll dry.
Yeah. So I only got to dabble in freshwater. And then I had a neighbor who had a giant 400-gallon in his basement. And I saw it for the first time. I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and I was tinkering with my freshwater. And it was like, if I could go back and recreate that tank, it would just be an absolute nothing but red flags, because there was still so much experimenting and just trial and error going on in the early 90s, where it was like he had a big carpet anemone, and if he fed it, he literally would feed it a feeder goldfish. Like, that's how he fed it. And he had an emperor angel in this thing, and he had big leathers. And I think back on this tank, and I'm like, it was so cool and massive and impressive. And he had a whole room back behind it where all the filtration was. And I was like, I don't know what all that is. I don't want to get into it, but I love what's in the tank. And it was so fascinating. And a 400-gallon back in the 90s, that's a big tank. And I used to come over and just ask him all sorts of questions. And one time when his emperor passed away, we actually ended up having a funeral. It was like me and like his kids and his wife, you know, she's sitting there. She's like, I can't believe it died. And we had a legit funeral in the backyard for it. And I was like, you know what? These fish live a long time and people become so connected to them.
Absolutely.
That now if people talk to me and they're like, I lost my clown, it was like 12 years old. I'm like, you know what? That's okay, because you had that fish for so long. You really do become so connected to it. And they have little personalities.
Yes, they
So
do.
when you've got them established with you for a decade, of course you're going to become emotionally tied to that animal somehow, some way. But yeah, recreating that tank right now would be just a big no-no. But it worked back then.
Well, I think things can work. Like when you break the rules, sometimes you do break it in the right way.
Right.
And
Well, and that's how we are where we are now.
When I first
If
got into
we
this
hadn't
hobby,
had
that's
all
like
that.
that's like all I did was try to break the rules. I'd like try and like put puffers in tanks I absolutely should not have. It never worked out for me, but like, you know, I was always trying stuff, you know, like there would always be people talking about, you know, like fish on the fringe and stuff like that, like fish that may or may not be okay in your reef tank, and I always wanted those fish for some reason. And most of the time it would not work out for me with like angels, puffer fish, and various other things.
Triggers.
Yep, triggers.
Yeah.
That's one for sure.
I always loved the
always try.
triggers, but they
love triggers.
loved reef tasting a lot.
they can be little jerks.
Which
They
is
can-
why I have a fish only
See,
175.
you have to have the
Ultra.
satisfaction
that's
of
right.
both. Like sometimes it really does happen, especially on the saltwater side. You're like, I love the aggressive fish because they're aggressive, but they're so beautiful. They're so beautiful. And there's a lot of nutrition advances now within the industry. You can actually cater to a lot of their dietary needs, which is really important now when you're dealing with aggressives, and especially if they have teeth, because you could potentially have to trim it down, you know, or they could get just all sorts of little like gut issues if they're not digesting the proper foods and things of that nature. And that was a learning process.
Frogfish, that could be a huge problem where their metabolism is so slow that if the meal's too big,
It'll rot inside.
it rots inside them. And a lot of people would lose their frogfish until that kind of
I've seen that
became
before,
much
for sure.
more well known.
Yeah.
Only feed them like every other week tops. You know? Like they don't move. It's like feeding a rock.
Pet rock protocol.
But you have to wiggle it so they know it's alive. You have to.
If you can even get them to take something frozen, you know, sometimes they're very, very finicky for a long time, you know. So.
I knew a gal when I worked at the fish store who got a Moorish idol that came in to eat flake food.
Yeah, my old boss.
I've seen that.
My old boss,
Very
Key
rare.
Hong.
She was
Very
incredible.
rare.
She could get anything to eat.
My old boss, Key Hong, used to like keep Moorish idols in all of his maintenance accounts, and he said he swore the key was to feed them Cheerios, to feed them unsweetened Cheerios, and that's how he kept them alive. And I mean, he had some that he had kept alive for like 7 or 8 years, like when I was.
I'm
working
just trying
for
to
him,
figure
so.
out like what that looked like with a Moorish idol and the very thin,
how-
skinny mouth eating a
Little
Cheerio.
crushed Cheerios.
Okay, because I was
Yeah.
like, hey, clearly it
Yeah.
looks more like
I
a
had
ring
visions
toss.
of the Cheerio on its
I did too. I
across
was like, this is
And
a
like-
ring toss situation.
Yeah, and then like his whole theory behind it was because they eat mainly sponges in the wild,
Right.
which contain a ton of fiber, and then you know the Cheerios also contain a ton of fiber, so that was like his whole spiel on it. But I mean, it worked. Like we had
They were
one,
alive. Yeah.
like the entire time I worked there, we had one in the front display that you know was thriving the entire time I worked there until I bought
cool.
the store, and then after that, like 6 months later, it's gone. You know, so you know. Just the way it goes.
Well, and the rules are important when you're first getting into the industry or into the hobby. They're guardrails. They're the bumpers when you're bowling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the more you learn, the more you start learning what rules you can break or what rules you can bend.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to build the foundation based on the rules until you understand the why.
Yes.
And once you understand the why of a rule, then you can start playing with it.
That's right.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Okay, well, oh my gosh, I believe we've now gotten up our hour, and
Sweet.
you know, thank you guys so
Yeah.
much
Thank
for
you. Thank
you
coming
for
and
having
being
It was a
on
blast.
here. We did miss Remy this evening. We tried very hard to have him be part of our thing, but we just could not get all of the technical difficulties situated. But next time we'll make sure that we've got Remy either here in the studio, whenever he comes down for restock. I'm sure he'll be in here filming with you, Jack, and anybody else if he decides to have a guest come during that time in March. So don't worry, Remy, we'll get you in here and you'll get to hang out with us. But thank you guys so much. And thank you so much, Reef Therapy viewers, for being on here. And don't forget to comment down below so that way you guys can have your chance to win a free ICP test with hashtag what's in your water. So we pick winners after every single episode, and make sure that you check back on your comment section so that way you can discover if you were a winner and you can get a very awesome detailed ICP analysis test done for your system. And that is it, guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys on the next Reef Therapy.